Well, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm going to start doing these podcasts on Saturday. I like it better on Saturday for some reason. I guess, we get a better return on people watching as well. So, the thing is I've been having some issues with the local court systems here, and I'm going to read something here. It says, we live in a time where too many people are in positions of power that think they can decide which truths are heard and which truths are silenced. But let me remind you tonight, ignoring the truth doesn't change the truth. Let's start with the appeal I filed. The law is clear. An appeal is not a new trial. It is a review of the record. The West Virginia Supreme Court said plainly in State versus Stewart 192, West Virginia 428, 1994, an appeal is a review of a judgment and not a trial de novo. They said it again in State versus Duke 200, West Virginia 356, 1997. On appeal, this court is limited to matters contained on the record. But Judge Kerry Webster ignored the law and twisted the appeal into a brand new proceeding. This is called judicial overreach. And ignoring the law doesn't change the law. That case right there, that was an appeal where I had a CPS worker who successfully, without any evidence whatsoever, in the lower court was able to get me convicted in a civil case based on a harassment charge that she wasn't able to prove. She had no evidence. But when I went to go appeal before Judge Webster, she turned it into a retrial. She even invited the CPS worker to that trial and had her, even allowed her to testify during an appeal, which is, you're not supposed to do that. An appeal is about talking about the situations, the legal situations that happened in the first case that caused you to be convicted in the first place. But she didn't know what to do. She didn't operate her court properly. Then we come to Judge Jennifer Bailey. I filed a petition for grandparents' rights. I waited 7 months. Now, this is after dealing with Judge Tara Salango and Judge Stephanie Abraham for almost 2 years. Okay, then I refiled it, and it went before Judge Bailey. I filed a petition for grandparents' rights. I waited 7 months. When the day finally came, Judge Bailey dismissed my case with prejudice without hearing a single witness. Never been in her court. Not in this case. The U.S. Supreme Court in Troxel versus Granville 530 U.S. 57, 2000 recognized that family rights are constitutionally protected. The West Virginia Supreme Court in the grandparents' visitation of Amanda M. 196 West Virginia 441 1996 recognized that grandparents have standing to be heard. It's not about just being able to file your case. You have a standing to be heard, and they're not doing that. Due process, as stated in Willis 157 West Virginia 225 1973, requires an opportunity to be heard at a meaningful time and in a meaningful manner. Judge Bailey herself gave me none of that. Ignoring the truth doesn't change the truth. Let's talk about Judge Richard Lindsay. Rule 55 of West Virginia Rules of Civil Procedure says, and the other party fails to respond, default shall be entered. Now, that case right there, the litigants did not respond to a lawsuit in time. They were in what they call default judgment. Now, we're not talking about a couple days. We're talking about 6 months went by. No response, period. So we go to court, goes before Judge Lindsay. 7 months passed without response. The U.S. Supreme Court in Logan versus Zimmerman Brush, CO 455 U.S. 422 1982 held that denial of procedural right is a denial of due process. Yet Judge Lindsay refused to follow Rule 55. Instead, he dismissed my case, gave them immunity to the prosecutor in another case who obstructed justice. This contradicts Connolly versus Gibson 355 U.S. 41 1957, which said a plaintiff must get his day in court unless it is beyond doubt he cannot prevail. Ignoring the rules doesn't erase them. Ignoring the truth doesn't change the truth. So in this specific case, before Lindsay, the litigant never responds. I go to court. That court date was supposed to be addressing why the defendant didn't respond. Instead, All that defendant had to do in that courtroom that day is say her name. That's it. Then the judge took over. He became an advocate for the defendant, allowed me to produce no evidence because it wasn't an evidentiary hearing. That hearing was specifically for one purpose only, to determine why she did not respond. Instead, Judge Lindy decided, you know what, I'm going to go ahead and dismiss this case instead. Look, I don't even know what to tell you on that. You can come up with your own philosophies as to whether or not this is a corrupt process. I don't know. It's up to you. I have my own feelings on them. So then we moved to Judge Ballard. Wow. He orchestrated the mass recusal of all 8 judges of Kanawha County. Remember, there's 8 judges in the circuit court. He put together a petition, filed it to the higher court to recuse all 8 judges from any of my legitimate cases. Thank God the higher court said, I don't think so. It's an insane concept. So they were turned down, okay? So when that failed, he declared in open court during one of my cases, he actually told me in open court, you don't have any rights. Article 3 of 17 of the West Virginia Constitution says the courts of the state shall be open and every person shall have remedy of due process or due course of law. You know, the problem we're having here is, you know, when a judge decides to throw a case out without hearing it, that's just outrageous. So what this judge did in connection with that, just recently I was given a letter by his office from Judge Ballard's office. He decided to take over all my cases. They're not even in his court. So in this letter, it basically states that any filings, any motions, any kind of thing I have to produce to the court has to go before his court first. So I actually went there Friday. I was filing a motion in a civil case I have against DHHR. That document was supposed to go to Judge Abraham, and instead they wouldn't even take it. I ended up having to put it into his personal mailbox at the courthouse. I was instructed to do that by the officers themselves. Look, as far as I'm concerned, this process is nothing shy of obstruction of justice. Because if that filing that I brought there Friday, if that doesn't reach that Judge Abraham in time, that case can easily be thrown out. Not to mention, why does he have to review my response motions, okay, from another circuit court judge? Well, he doesn't trust Judge Abraham. You know, if I was Judge Abraham, I would be outraged that he did this. He's actually telling her that, you know what, my opinion means more than yours. What's he going to do? He's going to read it and let her know what his opinion is? That's not his job. That's an overreach at best. It's just outrageous. Finally, the 8th Circuit Court as a whole, in July 2025, all 8 judges, just reiterating this, right? The Supreme Court of Appeals turned it down once again. You know, here's the undeniable truth. The testimony of a decorated detective still exists, because I have that in the case. They're not allowing any evidence to be produced in their courtrooms, because guess what? They're not allowing me to produce. They're not even allowing me into court, much less produce things. I have the testimony of CPS worker Nathan Phillips, which you've seen on my podcast, who clearly made it clear that my granddaughter should be returned home. Instead, Alex Mayer himself replaced that CPS worker with another CPS worker who recommended termination of parental rights, and guess what? That's what happened. These people are crooked. That's what they are. They're crooked. So here's the undeniable truth. The testimony of a decorated detective, it's still going to exist. You cannot change reality just because you suppress it. It doesn't work that way. Every day they delay the truth, they strengthen it. Every time they silence a witness, the record grows louder. Every time they dismiss a case, the injustice becomes clear. And one day, when the walls of denial crack, they will hear the full force of the truth, because ignoring the truth doesn't change the truth. It only delays the reckoning. And the longer the delay, the greater the reckoning will be. We at Watchdogs, we are parents, we are grandparents, we are families who refuse to be silenced. And in the end, the only true result is accountability. Without accountability, these players will continue to destroy our communities. They must answer not only to the courts of law in the highest court of all, the court of the people. We must take account of their behavior when it matters most, and that comes election time. You know, ladies and gentlemen, I mean, I just got a letter in the mail today that I talked earlier a moment ago about Judge Ballard taking my case and reviewing it when it's supposed to go to Judge Abraham. But I got to have a letter today, a case reassignment. That case already, musical chairs once again, is going from Judge Abraham back to Judge Bailey, which I've had a lot of Judge Bailey's the same judge who just recently dismissed my case with prejudice, and she never even heard it. A case that I've had on file for almost the last 2.5 years. She dismissed every ounce of it. And because she did it with prejudice means I could never bring it back up again. So all my evidence, all the testimony from the officers, CPS work, and all that fun stuff, according to her, with her decision, can never be shown in court. Now, don't get me wrong, I am appealing that. Hopefully the appellate court, turns her decisions over. But I don't want her on any cases that I have. In fact, I don't want any of these judges on any of my cases. Let me ask you something. Would you want a judge on any of your cases that banded together with all the other judges to try and recuse themselves from any of your cases? Who would want that? It's absolutely insane. We're stuck with these judges. We're stuck with them. And that's just the bottom line. When we make our complaints to the judiciary, they make out like these judges are doing the right thing. Well, it's within their scope. No, it's not. It is not in your scope, okay, to obstruct justice. It is not in your scope, Judge Ballard, to tell a litigant you have no rights. That's not in your scope. He should be punished for that. And guess what? More than likely, I haven't filed it yet. I'm filing my complaint against him this Monday. They're just going to, I guarantee you, they're going to come up with some kind of cockamamie way to say it's okay for him to do it, because that's what they do. We have probably 20 different complaints, and they're all valid complaints. And 99% of them, well, actually 100% of them, all involve due process, or should I say the lack thereof. Ladies and gentlemen, this courthouse right here, the 8th Circuit Court in Kanawha County, is by far, I don't even know what word to use for it, but I guess if you want to categorize it, I would have to say one word would be corrupt. You have a group of judges that do whatever it takes to protect one another. And that's all this is all about. It's all about protecting one another. Why would I be treated with such disrespect? When I went to the courthouse the other day, I was escorted around by cops like I'm some kind of a criminal. All because I made the statement to at the counter at the clerk's office that I believe what Judge Ballard is doing is illegal. Because it may not be illegal in the true sense, but it's definitely immoral. There's no doubt about it. It's immoral. Because all he's doing right here, he's making this case take longer and longer and longer. And then finally, at some point in time, they're just going to throw it out like they do all the other cases without hearing a word of it. This is their MO. This is what they do. So when you come to me and you ask me, because we have a lot of, people out there that live right in this community that deal with that court, how I feel about Kanawha County Courthouse, thumbs down. Thumbs down. I mean, I haven't, there's only one judge that I've dealt with so far that gave me a fair shake, and that's Judge Dave Hardy. Now, I applaud Judge Abraham for recusing herself, okay? Because you know what? She don't want any part of this stuff. I don't blame her. Why would you want to be part of something that's such a scam? Okay, and her husband's a pretty heavy-duty politician, and he works for a politician over in D.C. She don't need this kind of complicated stuff, and she's smart enough to get out of it. So did Tara Salango. She got out of it early. They don't want this kind of chaos, but Ballard and Bailey, they can care less. They don't care about the repercussions, because at the end of the day, They've been in office for a very long time. I don't know if they're looking to rerun. All I know is they're raising hell in that courthouse right now. They're raising hell. They're doing whatever they want. And, you know, we just had the recent, issue with Charlie Kirk. And, the thing I liked about Charlie Kirk was he stood for a situation where, if you break it all down, he was all about communication. Regardless of political background, regardless of anything, it's about communicating. Why is it that these judges can't just be reasonable? Say, Mr. Millay, talking to me, come into my office or whatever. Let's sit down and have a reasonable adult conversation. Let's call it a Charlie Kirk moment. They can't do that. They have to hold fast to this ridiculous position they've been holding for almost 3 years now, terrorizing our family. My granddaughter's in a house where she ought not to be. From day one, she should never be in the house. And they're protecting that scenario. You have Alex Mayer out there responding right now. Last week he was talking about what he's doing, for the community in terms of what he's doing with CPS. He talks about transparency. We don't care about transparency. I could see right through you, Alex. You are as transparent as the day is long. We care about accountability, Alex. Forget the transparency. We want accountability. Why are your CPS workers still not held accountable for going to court and lying? Because that's what they did in our case, Alex. Why are you yourself, Alex, not being held accountable right now for banning me from the federal building or from your building illegally? And that's what that civil lawsuit I have is you banned me from your building illegally. And I just got a response from your attorneys saying the reason you did is because I had an active harassment charge against me. Sorry, you guys need to learn to do math. That order was out over a year ago. So you banned me from your building illegally. And by the way, that was the form that I dropped off my response to that I was forced to put in Judge Baylor's Dropbox that's supposed to go to Judge Abraham, but now Judge Bailey. So hopefully that makes it to them in time so that case doesn't get thrown out due to the fact that I didn't respond in time because they wouldn't take it at the circuit clerk. They wouldn't even take that paperwork at the circuit clerk at all. They wouldn't stamp it, nothing. I had to put it in the Dropbox raw. No copies made, just there it is. If he does something with it, fine. If he doesn't. But I did video record me putting it in his Dropbox so I can prove I actually did that. But with this court, they don't allow you to bring proof. So hopefully in the higher courts, I have a couple cases in the intermediate appellate court that they seem to be taken seriously. If I'm allowed to bring this evidence into theirs and they actually listen to it, let me provide evidence, we're going to see a huge change at the 8th Circuit. So hopefully, I've said it before, I'll say it again, all we need, ladies and gentlemen, we just need one legitimate court with the real judge who really cares about the Constitution. And then we got these people. That's all it's going to take. They're hiding behind immunity, and it's not even real immunity. They're hiding behind immunity because they have other judges that are friendly with them that are not forcing them to do the right thing. You don't have immunity from a lot of things that these judges are committing in terms of crimes. And I really do believe that what Judge Bellard is doing is obstruction of justice. And I'm looking into that. I know I'm not going to be able to press charges on it, but that's a whole different ballgame. But the bottom line is if you're a judge, why would you even want to be considered an individual who would obstruct justice? Your job is to prevent that from happening, not produce it yourself. I mean, it doesn't make any sense. So look, that being said, I don't want to ramble on here. These are shorts. So I'm doing for now on for the most part is I just want to let you know that we're on top of what's going on here in the state of West Virginia. And I guarantee you this is the same kind of stuff that's going on in your communities, wherever you live. This is systemic. There's no doubt about it. And we're not going to stop fighting. We are not going to stop fighting. But at the end of the day, I said it before, I'll say it again. We are not anti-family court, and we are not anti-CPS. We are pro-justice. Thank you.